Good evening to all. My name is Rajan Mahavali Rajan. My last name, Mahavali Rajan, refers to the longest river in Sri Lanka. Therefore, I don't need to explain any further. I am a native of Sri Lanka. I'm a Sri Lankan Tamil living in Canada since 1984. Today's topic that I am going to talk about is about this so-called Bill 104, Tamil Genocide Education Week. It went through 3 different readings and it got the royal assent. So first reading took place April 30th, 2019. Second reading took place May 16, 2019. Third reading took place May 6, 2021. Fourth, May 12, 2021. I looked at the act. I actually like the act. The main idea of this act is to educate the people on the concept called genocide. So that would take me to the word genocide. It's a Latin word. Genos means race or tribe. Side, C-I-D-E, means to kill. So when an act is carried out to kill a particular tribe, such as what happened in Rwanda, a race such as what Hitler tried to do with the Jewish population, or what recently happened in formerly called Burma, presently called Myanmar. These are clear genocides. This particular Bill 104, it bears the word Tamil. I have a problem with that. The problem is Tamils in Sri Lanka, we never experienced genocide. We experienced communal riots. We experienced hatred by all citizens against each other because they are being or belongs to one particular ethnic group called Sinhalese or Tamils, Muslims, and even within Tamils. Myself, I'm a Tamil. I can clearly tell you, even among us, we have a caste-based system. There is clear discrimination towards certain caste, and also there is clear hatred when a particular caste is trying to overtake the other. But I can tell you, as an honest person, genocide in Sri Lanka never happened. This particular act, Tamil Genocide Education Week Act, refers to a period from May 11th to May 18th. So it is being proclaimed that May 11th to May 18th should be considered devoted as Tamil Genocide Education Week Act or week. Why can't we label that particular act as World Genocide Week, Education Week? World Genocide Education Week. Why would or why should we label this particular act as Tamil Genocide Education Week? Is it simply because there are so many Tamils living in GTA and the political parties are concerned about getting their votes, electoral support for capturing the parliamentary or provincial government seat based on ethnicity? Let me tell you, LTTE is clearly a terrorist organization. What had happened in Sri Lanka during the final stage of the civil war, Sri Lankan army, with the help of India, China, Pakistan, possibly many other countries, defeated a terrorist organization that took Tamils as hostages, that took Tamils as human shield, that took Tamils as their final weapons and victimized the Tamils in the brutal war against terrorism by the Sri Lankan government. The North Americans, Western world, has to be clear. Sri Lankan government is not a just government. Of course, it has many problems. There are unresolved political issues for Tamils. There are workers struggling to improve their lives. There are people suffering. There are social suffering, economical suffering, political suffering. Everything is happening. However, the one fact remains that whatever happened during the final stage of the war does not constitute genocide. Genocide is when the government is trying to exterminate a particular group, race, ethnicity, or social group. In this particular case, May 11th to May 18th, the government was fighting to eradicate militancy, terrorist group, not militancy. I'm sorry. It was a terrorist group. Let me share this with you. I'm a Tamil. I came to Canada and claimed refugee. I went through all difficult stages as whatever experienced by an average immigrant in Canada. I did my schooling at Trent, Peterborough. Then I did my further studies, and now I'm a licensed paralegal. So when I looked at this particular Bill 104, or this act, it really bothers me to see the word Tamil. In my opinion, it should be World Genocide Education Week, because clearly there are so many other parts should be considered when we talk about genocide, but not Sri Lanka. Rwanda, Burma, which is now called Myanmar, Bosnia-Serbia conflict, and recent development that is happening in Israel-Palestinian issue. They are talking about war crimes. However, the word Tamil, I think it is not the correct way to name this particular act, unless otherwise it is intended for some political purposes, such as there is a large group of Tamils who can easily be fooled by showing that the Canadian government or the provincial government is looking after their political interest beyond the borders of Canada. It was the same belief that these Tamils, especially in Scarborough, had when they elected MP for Canadian parliaments. I believe twice it happened. Then MPPs from Markham, councillors from Rouge River. All these people, all these times, when Tamils elected these people, they did not elect them because they belongs to a particular party. Tamils in Scarborough did not elect these people because they are liberals, because they are conservatives, because they are Democrats. That's not the case. They elected them because they are Tamils. And these Tamil candidates who contested in different party tickets, they all belongs to one group, that is pro-LTTE camp. The reason they belongs to the pro-LTTE camp, they know very well that is the only camp or that is the only agenda that they can propagate to appeal, give emotional appeal to the Tamils living in Scarborough. And it worked. Tamils, for some reason, got deceived by these people that these people are going to improve or possibly get them the Tamil Elam, the dream homeland. If I can elect a councillor for Toronto City, and if I expect to get Tamil Elam in Sri Lanka, I should be a damn fool. And I can tell you, the Tamils in Scarborough, you know what I mean. They acted with the hope, some sort of a hallucination. They were dreaming, bad dream. They thought this MPP, councillor would deliver them Tamil Elam. So for an MPP to come up with this idea called Tamil Genocide Education Week Act, it's highly symbolic. And it can easily re-elect him. And I would congratulate him because he is smart enough to once again fool my fellow Tamils. But if you clearly look at the act talks about only educating the population on the concept called genocide. And they have conveniently chosen the week May 11th to May 18th to coincide with the May 18th Mahavira Day, the day that is celebrated by the remnants of LTTE as the Heroes' Day. So the May 18th is the Heroes' Day for the terrorist group LTTE. By encouraging such practice, such thought, such behavior, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, the government is telling the people, well, it's perfectly all right that you can support the terrorist group. Perhaps the Western world has a different standard. I believe it was one of the Secretary of State, if not Secretary of Defense, I'm not sure, from United States, one pointed out that when we train them, they are called freedom fighters. When we don't train them, they are called terrorists. It appears to me such a standard exists in Canada. That was my experience. There are times the government clearly knows. There are so many organizations acting as the front organization of these terrorist groups, but they are not taking any action on them. Most likely because of the political interest each party had by associating with these groups. It's very sad, but that is the reality. Why not we call this particular bill 104 as Myanmar Genocide Education Week? Are we not aware of the fact there is genocide happening in Myanmar? Happened against Muslims. They became homeless. They all forcefully migrated to Bangladesh. Why can't we call this as Bosnian Genocide Education Week or Rwandan Genocide Education Week? Or why not we call the recent one Palestinians Genocide Education Week? Why we bother calling this bill as Tamil Genocide Education Week? Simply because there are Tamil voters in GTA. By doing one like this, politicians are hoping that they would be re-elected by this particular ethnic group. This is their hope, and I'm sure they will definitely be re-elected if they continue in this path. So what is the difference between a politician in Sri Lanka, India, Africa, or the politicians in Canada? Are we not fooling the people? Clearly, I feel really betrayed by the government, provincial government, Canadian government, to take advantage of the foolishness or perhaps innocence of my people, Tamils, and deceive them by labeling a bill as Tamils. Let me also share with you the group, the terrorist group LTTE. Do you know how much terrorism they unleashed against their own people? For example, LTTE was responsible for killing all other fellow militant groups. LTTE was responsible for killing democratically elected Tamil Parliament MP, Mr. Amrithalingam, who became the first opposition leader, Tamil opposition leader in Sri Lanka. He was assassinated by LTTE. Do you know how many Muslims from their homeland were looted, chased out of their homeland, just with the clothes that they were wearing at the time? They were not allowed to take any of their belongings with them. And how could we cherish? How could we celebrate? How could we elect someone who openly supported LTTE terrorist organization? I can openly tell you, when Mr. Bobre was presiding a meeting with the release of Human Rights Watch report in Scarborough, it was protested by two individuals. Those two individuals call themselves as Tamil activists. One is a current member of parliament, Mr. Gary Anand Sangari from Scarborough. The other one was a Toronto City Councillor, Neithan Shah. Mr. Bobre had a very bad experience on that day, and he said in his political life, he never experienced one like that day. And let me tell you, the reason these people protested that Human Rights Watch book release, because the Human Rights Watch clearly condemned the Sri Lankan government as well as the LTTE for series of human rights violations. Also, the MPP who finally championed this Bill 104, Mr. V. Thanihasal, he is very well known as a political activist for speaking for LTTE and in support of LTTE. I should also tell you, because of the civil war, because of the association with the LTTE, there are so many people in Scarborough became multimillionaires because there was a heavy fundraising campaign even at the last stage of the civil war. The money that they collected for that so-called final war never reached the fighters. It was all used up by the LTTE so-called supporters or fundraisers in Toronto. They came up with so many stories. There were two individuals came to my house. They were confronted by the police. One of them is Madhagal Kannan. The other one called himself as Plot Thiru. They were telling me that if I were to invest the money, they would guarantee me 6% interest at the time. And these funds that they were collecting at the time were to support purchasing surface to air missile, SAM. I don't think I never gave them a penny, but I'm sure they collected millions of dollars. I don't think that money ever reached Sri Lanka. Then, of course, in the final war, so many LTTE, you wanted to call them terrorist fighters, liberators, whoever it is, some of them still alive, and most of them are struggling for their day-to-day living, begging on the street. What are these people doing in Canada? They are taking advantage of our real struggle to achieve our political aspirations in Sri Lanka, and using that feeling, making money, setting up businesses, hiring helicopters, engaged in highly expensive wedding functions and all the other social activities. So finally, I like to say one thing. Canadian politicians, all Canadian political parties, should clearly understand this may help in the short run to get your party members re-elected to the parliament or to the provincial government. But in the long run, we are not taking the right step. That's all I need to say. And thank you very much for listening to